Hello, my friends. Hello. Just called to let you know. Bit of a different intro. Jumping in between two platforms. Bit of an experimental show for you tonight. I'm going to keep Twitch and D Live up on the ticker tape here to the left. So if you're viewing, ooh, my hand. It's creeping and creeping. Less of the madness. Before I get started, please, as I always do with our good friends, as we wait for the room to fill up, and all our good friends join us presently. Come on. Step lively. Class, can you hear me? Come on now, class. Come on now, everybody, gather around. Settle down, please. Settle down. Thank you. Okay. As the room fills up, lovely. Please, as I always do, don't forget our friends over at the littlepharma.ie. We love our enzymes so much. We keep them alive. Wheatgrass and barley grass shots full of, they're so good. Small wonder they're so good. 1 wheatgrass shot is equivalent to 1 kilogram of your leafy green veg, and barley grass juice is fully of antioxidants. Just shake and shoot. And as always, don't forget to enter in your promo code GT. Quick one before we get started, and before I bring in Kelly for tonight's disquisition. A lot to touch on. I'm sure you'll be thoroughly enthralled, as all our good friends, Liz joining us, Catherine McKay, Joe Whelan, Tara, Martin, 5x5, good, Melissa O'Neill in the house, great to see you. Delighted one, delighted all, and our good friend Michael John Dennis over in Manchester. Nobody viewing as just yet over on Twitch, but we'll let that play out. Couple of quick points before we bring Kelly in. I'm going to be joining a couple of American friends on a few American stations. When I get a couple of links, I'll drop them out. If you're around, if you're up, come over and say hello. I think I might do a stream myself later on tonight as we get closer to the results. Already from early polling, it's already looking like but there are controversies over around polling stations, some illegal, some disputes already raising their heads as we begin. Okay, before I ramble on too much, let's bring Kelly in. Kelly, good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Not at all. It's an absolute pleasure. Another black pill dispenser. I'm only joking. Welcome, my friends. Please gather around and push. Pay attention, please. The one and only Kelly is with us tonight. Kelly, we spoke just before we got onto the start of the show, and you posited out a good suggestion for poking holes at the story, at the narrative. Please elaborate for our friends here with us.
Okay, well, what I'd like to talk about tonight is about the COVID-19 vaccines, that the information we have, so that people have that information to ask questions about, and then what people can do as well at the end of it. So that's basically what I'd like to do. So I'll share my screen and we can get started. So,
and all the bells and the whistles. Everybody's dealing with bells and whistles. Here we go. Great job. You have it there. And let me throw it up on the screen there for you.
Back to the front. There we go. Okay. Is it up?
Oh, yes, love. Carry on.
Oh, that's, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this was an article written in Forbes, and it's a really good article, so I'd suggest people go and read it. And so when the manufacturers say that they're rigorously testing the vaccines, what the question is what they're actually looking for in the trial, because they can be rigorously testing, but if they're only looking for a specific target, then it doesn't matter. That's kind of irrelevant. So it's the target they're looking for that's relevant. So for instance, in these COVID-19 vaccines, they're not looking for those vaccines to prevent infection at all. That's not a criteria for these vaccines. The only criterion is for the vaccines to reduce the symptoms of COVID-19. And that's really important because we'll see about that in a minute. But the guy who wrote it is well positioned to write this article and have the questions. He's from Harvard Medical School and public, School of Public Health and things. So he's in a position to talk about what he is talking about. And then, for instance, Moderna, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca only require their vaccines to prevent moderate symptoms, such as cough and headache. That's it. And the other thing to note about the studies is that vaccine studies are only ever carried out on young, healthy individuals who are, in this case, not at risk from dying of COVID-19. So the results are really, in effect, useless anyway, because they aren't geared towards the people who are most at risk from COVID-19. And the number of participants in these trials, while the manufacturers say that they intend to do the trials on 30,000 to 60,000 people, initially, in the interim and in the primary analysis, they're only going to do them on really small numbers, the highest number being 164. And then it appears that they're going to ask for emergency use authorization based on these very small numbers. And then maybe supposedly do the test on bigger numbers. But that's like shutting the stable door after the horse has gone out. So it'll be all based on really small numbers. So the minimum qualification in these vaccine trials for a case of COVID-19, for what they're looking for, is that you have one positive PCR test plus 1 to 2 mild symptoms, such as a headache, fever, cough, or mild nausea, which are cold symptoms. So that's it. That's what they're looking for to say, yes, it prevents those, basically. So, for example, in the Moderna trial, only 13 or less in the group that's given the COVID-19 vaccine have to produce, they're looking for 13 or less to meet a case criteria, to have a positive PCR test or to have a cough or a headache. And then in the people who are not given the COVID-19 vaccine, they're looking for a greater amount than 40 to have a positive PCR test plus one of those mild symptoms. In AstraZeneca, it's 18 or less in the vaccine group and more than 59 in the non-COVID-19 vaccine group. So my comments would be that they're not actually looking for failure to prevent hospitalization or death in the vaccine studies. And that is what every government, including our own, is driving all this fear and hysteria on, in the fact that the hospitals will be overcome, the death rate will be huge. So these vaccines aren't even going to meet what the government is creating the fear over. And the failure to prevent infection is also not a criteria. So the vaccine doesn't even have to not stop infection. That's irrelevant. And the other really important thing to remember is that some of the vaccines are not they're being trialed against what's called a comparator. So it's not a placebo. It's not an inert subject that doesn't cause any symptoms or any effect on the body, such as saline solution. So, for instance, some of the vaccines are being trialed against a meningococcal vaccine. So, and also some of the vaccines are using drugs alongside the vaccine. So, you know, all this will hide effects. So if you give paracetamol, for instance, alongside a vaccine in the beginning, the paracetamol is given for the specific purpose of alleviating symptoms such as headache, mild nausea, you know, fevers, things like that. So you're going to hide those if that's given. And if you're giving another vaccine, you're also going to mask some of the side effects of the vaccine being trialed, because they may also be produced by the other vaccine. So the other thing to remember is that so far we've heard of at least 2 cases of transverse myelitis, which is inflammation of the spinal cord, which causes paralysis. Those were in the AstraZeneca trials. Also in one of the AstraZeneca trials, the Brazilian one, one person died from complications of COVID-19, not the vaccine, of COVID-19. And all of them are producing, in the Moderna one, for instance, I think it was Moderna, in the second dose, almost 100% of people were getting things like fatigue, chills, headache, and myalgia, which is muscle pain. So the manufacturers were stopped in some of the cases when things happen like the transverse myelitis. But then they said causation and correlation. They don't, you can't just say this person took the vaccine and they got transverse myelitis, so therefore it was the vaccine. They're saying you can't say that, and there's no proof that it's caused by the vaccine. So the studies are started and going on again. In some of the vaccines, you have something called AD5. So what that is it's a genetically engineered adenovirus. And there's concerns among some researchers that this will put people at higher risk of developing HIV, which is the virus that causes AIDS. And the reason they have these concerns is because they've used this AD5 before, and this is what they've been seeing and things like that. So that also isn't being addressed either as to the effects that we are producing along the way. So one of the things that I would have a concern about is I would have a concern that our government has just sealed all the records of the mother and baby's homes, excuse me, where it's now evident that the government allowed vaccine trials to be carried out. So they just sealed all those. And so we can't see why they let vaccine trials carried out, what the effects were and everything. But in the next breath, they're really, really delighted to announce that they're going to allow the experimental COVID-19 vaccine to be trialed on the Irish people first. So we haven't learned anything. And my opinion, and this is just my opinion, is that they appear to be morally bankrupt, and they also appear to think that the Irish people are a bit thick and that they're going to fall for this. So what I think people can do is I think they can contact their local TDs. And when you're contacting your local TD, what I would suggest is that you actually give a personal impact statement. So what is happening, how their actions are impacting you personally or your children or your parents, and what you're seeing. And that's a very powerful thing. So if you were to say, that your child was really down and depressed because they're not seeing their friends, or you've noticed they're becoming withdrawn, or your elderly parent is suddenly very old and frail and afraid of everything where they weren't before, or they're not going out, or what's happened to you, what it is. And for instance, when I wrote mine a couple of weeks ago, what I would have said at the end was that I wanted to know what gave them the right to take away my ability to try and earn a living and to impact on it, and to also potentially send me down a very dark and dismal and depressing and maybe suicidal route if I wasn't, why did they have that right to do that to me? So you could ask those questions. And when you're talking to people, I would say, ask questions. Don't make statements to people when you're trying to get this information out. Ask questions such as, are they happy that they've not seen any evidence from the government for why we're being locked up? Or are they happy that the government hasn't produced any evidence as to why everybody has to wear a mask? And in fact, the TDs are asking NPHET for it and they haven't given it. So why are we doing it if there's no evidence being produced, and things like that? And then if people would like to follow me, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, on my website, and I am actually
Look at this, Charlotte. It's shameless. There's no shame in it.
No,
Piggy, get up. Go on.
Exactly. So that's it, really. And we can talk about it now, about all that. But I would say to people, it's really important to start any information they have, to start trying to share it with people in a question form, because then people can hear that much more and they don't feel as it's not so antagonistic. So if you ask questions of people, if you have statements, put them in a question. That's what I would say, and things like that. And start talking to people and bringing in information and letting them know, did they know that the COVID-19 vaccines are not actually looking to prevent infection, or that they're not even looking to stop hospitalizations or deaths, that all they're looking for is to reduce symptoms that are so broad that they're nondescript, because we have no definitive symptom for COVID-19. They're all symptoms that you can get that are attributed to colds or other illnesses and things as well. So there's nothing definitive to define it. So ask questions of people. Don't make statements, because people get, in my opinion, people get really cross and upset when there are statements.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. And we've always said that here as well. It's always like, first and foremost, remain in honor, which means ask questions, be polite, be pleasant, and, draw them to answer the question. As you said, a question far outweighs a statement of fact. You're coming to the conclusion already, and you're asking them not to draw a conclusion, but to agree with you without having to check it out. But a question gets them to inquire, gets them to, to provoke their inquiries into doing more research, or to at least establish a sort of a baseline where you can interact with each other. You can get a feel. Is this? I partook in something similar earlier on today with a health professional. Believe it or not, I'm not going to name names or do anything, but we met momentarily before I went for the exam, and as a medical professional and stuff like that, I said, "It's crazy what's going on," and he was going, "Yeah, it's crazy and stuff like that. I'm just waiting for the vaccine so this can all crack on, And I'm kind of taken aback, and I'm really, yeah. I mean, there's a couple they're in trial already. I said, "Which one? The AstraZeneca?" Well, he says, "I don't care, as long as it's there and we can just get back and start building our lives again. This is just getting crazy." I said, "Well, it wouldn't be a vaccine for me." And then I jumped in. I said, "Have you heard of any therapeutic combinations or alternatives?" I said, "There's a thing called hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin and zinc combination, which seems to be, not only effectively relieving symptoms, but actually giving preventative and immunity to it as well. It's an anti-malarial drug." I never heard of that one. Never heard of that one there. But but I was shocked. And I was going, they're just ready to stick out and give me the injection. And these are professionals. This is a professional healthcare. So I've read all the documentation, Kelly. I've seen all the, I understand it's a trial vaccine, but humanity needs this. Dear God.
Well, the questions then are, it's an opportunity. If you meet people like that, to say to them, this is what I'm hoping, if I share this information with people, it gives them the opportunity to say to people, well, the vaccine doesn't sound that great, because there have been several cases of paralysis, transverse myelitis caused by it, and a death and other effects. And, the vaccine isn't even looking to stop infection or to prevent deaths or hospitalizations. The vaccine is just looking to minimize symptoms such as coughs, headaches, mild nausea. So does that sound like a really great trade-off to you? These are the things you can ask, the potential side effects of vaccine.
Also, when I was speaking with the practitioner as well, just as a throwaway remark, I keep pushing this out, to see if there's anybody will pick up on it. I said, we haven't yet had a cautious postulate. It's something that was pushed to me to one of my friends. I'm no medical expert, but when you read up and you research it, this is the definition of what the disease is. If it can be replicated and there's a correlation between the disease and the antibody, blah, blah, blah. So my question to the health professional then would have been, but I didn't take him up on his generous offer, was, if we don't have a cautious postulate, what's in the vaccine then? What if the vaccine is supposed to give us a minute form of whatever they're trying to immunize us against? If we don't have a definition of what it is, our Koch's postulate. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What do you think, Kelly?
Koch's postulates.
I knew there'd be. I knew it. I didn't want to go there. Only joking, Kelly. Carry on. We have to have a bit of crack as Kyo. You know that more than anybody else.
And that's another thing I'd like to say to people, is you really have to find something that you can give you a purpose. So
yes.
I've started to swim in the morning in the sea. So every morning I'm getting up, if I don't really feel like it much, and go for a swim in the sea. And there's a lovely group of women, and I get just to say hello, and it's just chit chat and talk as you're passing type thing. But it gets you going, and it's really positive and things like that. So people need to find something to give them a purpose, especially now. And the other thing I have this is sort of a sidetrack here almost, but the concern I have at the moment is I would not be very religious. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. So I would think that there's one energy and we're all connected and we affect each other basically and things. But I have a really big concern at the moment that the churches have shut down, because a lot of people are very religious here, and be whatever religion they are. And it means a lot to them. And it has always been their method of setting them up for the day. There's some of the older generation who would go every day to mass, for instance, and that's what their positive connection is with people, with God, with everything. And that's gone. And if the government, any government, ours included, suddenly takes away your right to religion and your right to worship, I have a really big problem with that, because it's one of the fundamental ways you could break down the fabric of society, because it's breaking down unity. It's breaking down your unity, your connection with source energy, with God, with Allah, whoever you want to call it. It's also breaking down your connection with people in general. And if you were to read the Bible, basically how I would think, and again, it's just my opinion, is effectively the government, the churches have allowed the placing of a false idol, which is talked about in the Bible, which is the government, to be put above God or Allah or the universe or whatever you want. And I have a problem with that. I think that's shocking, and I think it's a grave concern. And I never thought I would live in a time when we're looking at basically hedge priests again and things like that. And yeah, I find it very odd.
Sorry, Kathy. Yeah, I'm just doing a little bit of research in the background here. We have, with the cooperation of some of our live chat, and I believe Granny's in there. I just sent you a message there, Granny, before I make that announcement. But I couldn't agree so very much more, regardless of someone's individual faith and stuff like that. The human requirement for inspiration and hope, and the fact that the church, that is what the church is, a place of healing, not only for the soul, but for the mind. It's your internal dialogue with your creator, with your God, and whatever place of worship you do go. I'm going to say this, Kelly, and this is not to include you in any way, shape, or form, but I know other religious ceremonies are taking place unabashed and unfettered, as in our other co-religionists, and have not had any restrictions. Their places of worship are still very well open. Now, it's not for me to come in and start agitating. I'm not here to agitate. I'm here to see the clear and blanket difference, or how would you phrase it, Kelly? The disproportionate application of the rules between one religion and another, and that not being facilitated. But regardless of that, they have representatives that will fight and voice for them, as is their right. We do not have advocates of the church, the priests, the prelates, everybody on my radar of any consequence that's not spoken up and said the church is not only it is separate from the state, but it is its own place. It does not have to abide by the laws. It has its own set of jurisdictional. It has canon law, its own laws. It should be there for its flock at all times. Where is the voice for the Catholics in Ireland? Where's the voice for the religious in Ireland?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that some other religions were actually able to go to and worship. I'm delighted that they are. I'm also, I think, fair play to the leaders of those communities that they did stand up, because I personally think it's horrific that some of the leaders aren't standing up. I think that's the same as abandoning your flock. Again, it's just my opinion, but I think it's not. I think a Zoom church is not the same. It's just not it's just not giving the same solace to people and things like that. I think that's not. I don't think it's right, and I think I'm kind of amazed at how much people have allowed to be taken from them without saying anything, and that they're still not saying something. I mean, I know there are certain people, I know some people are, but as in a group of body of people for certain churches aren't saying it. I think that's, I find that very amazing.
I don't want to say his name, but I am going to have, believe it or not, next Tuesday on the 10th, and I'm kicking myself here because I can't remember, I can't find the second name, but I will be speaking with a bishop, one of the bishops,
Good.
and it was put onto us. Yeah, so, and it's a very big deal because not only would he be well-known mainstream and be a but he'll be a strong advocate. He's a bishop first and foremost, His Excellency, and if I had his name there, we would know quite well who I'm speaking of. So I'm looking forward to that. I will advertise it. So I can't go off on my high-handed horse and say there's no representatives when I've just booked a guest next Tuesday, a bishop, no less.
I'm
bishop.
good. I'm
Where
glad
would
to
we
hear
get
it.
it?
Well,
Where would
I'm
you
really
get it?
glad. And there is I posted on my Instagram, there is an archbishop, and I'm probably going to pronounce his name wrong, but I think it's Vigiano, or
Viano, yeah. Archbishop Viano.
yeah.
Vigiano,
And
yeah, you're right.
yeah, and he
The double entendres in tonight's show is just off the charts, Kelly. The double entendres. Okay, and
anyway,
on that, go
I
finish your
didn't
point, sorry.
go on. But
Well,
anyway,
I
I was
wanted
delighted to see him talk about speak out and say things. That's great. It's really good.
Well, I have something here that Dave Cullen just threw it up on his Gab platform, where we have I'm keeping everything going here as well. And we might as well ask the question here while we have all the gang with us. Let me throw the share screen open. I'll read this out to you, Kelly. It's coming from the UK. It's written evidence by. I'll read it out primarily, and we'll get a grasp of it. From Dr. Lisa Forsberg, Dr. Isra Black, Dr. Thomas Douglas, and Dr. Jonathan Pugh. Compulsory vaccination for COVID-19 and human rights law. Now, I think this is just the introduction and a brief summary of some of the points. But they seem to be bringing up a case, and he was asking for what people had their thoughts on, what their thoughts were. But I know it's probably kind of small for you there, so I will read through it, and I will throw it into the link when I'm finished with it. Ooh. On one says I. Sorry, Kelly, give me 1 second. Just want to enlarge it. And it keeps enlarging the wrong one. My apologies. So an introduction and a summary. We are academics working in the area of philosophy and law with specializations in inter alia moral and political philosophy, biomedical ethics, health law and human rights law. Our submission pertains to compulsory COVID-19 vaccination, a requirement on individuals to undergo vaccination as a condition of release from pandemic-related restrictions on liberty, including on movement and association. Our evidence is forward-looking. We expect that a COVID-19 vaccine will become available in sufficient quantity to enable population-wide immunization. At that stage, the government will need to consider the means of delivery, including whether it is necessary to legislate for compulsory vaccination. We consider the human rights law dimensions of compulsory vaccination by reference to the Human Rights Act 1998 and the European Convention on Human Rights. As such, our submission primarily addresses a live issue and a second question in the committee's call for evidence. What will the impact of specific measures taken by the government to address the COVID-19 pandemic be on human rights in the UK? Our evidence takes the following form: a discussion of the reasons why compulsory vaccination may be needed to be considered, an overview of relevant legal provisions, an examination of the human rights law compliance of compulsory vaccination. Our analysis under 3 established 2 parity arguments. A, if COVID-19 lockdown measures are compatible with human rights law, then it is arguable that compulsory vaccination is 2, lockdown parity argument. B, if compulsory medical treatment under mental health law for personal and public protection purposes is compatible with human rights law, then it is arguable that compulsory vaccination is 2, mental health parity. So I'm presuming is that they are setting out the case against mandatory vaccines, but they are doing what you said as well, Kelly, which is to posit the questions and get them to answer, get them to make the answers. It's interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. That's coming out of the UK. So
And we do have doctors and things speaking up here as well. I mean, we have several doctors who have um, written open letters to the government. You know, they've said this isn't the right way to go and things like that with the lockdown and things. So, you know, we do have more and more people speaking out. Just the government does not appear to be paying any attention to them. Would be what it appears to be. I don't know.
Mhm.
You know, so, and the other thing, of course, to say is that we're not giving medical advice. We're just giving, all this is for educational purposes. So
100%.
everybody must make up their own mind about vaccines and what to do. But I would strongly encourage everybody to research them and to decide for themselves. The other interesting question I have is, I'm hearing, I don't know enough about the Constitution, but my my understanding is that the Constitution is given to us not by the government, but by a higher, by a right of that we are
Our,
humans. And
our inalienable rights, that's the key word in the Constitution, inalienable, which is above and beyond man. They're not man
yes,
given and they're not government given. They're
yes.
inalienable.
So yeah, so it's really interesting that can that have an effect on what has been done to us and what anything that they might like to do in future? I don't know, but it would be really nice if maybe a lot more people came forward. There was a group today that came out. I can't remember the name of them. I might be able to pull it up here.
Who's that?
I'll have to look it up and see. But there's a group of international people. Oh, the World Freedom Alliance 2020. So they are coming together with lawyers and everything. And there's an Irish lawyer on that, Martin somebody, I can't remember his surname, and Dolores Cahill's on it, and the German doctor.
Oh, I can't pronounce his name either, but I know who you're on about.
So there's a lot of people on that, and that'll be interesting to watch because they've only just put out their video today, which I can send you a link later, and you can maybe put it up for your listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. In the comment section of Facebook, Ronnie's in the live chat there as well. Just before we forget, it's Bishop Larry Gators is the gentleman. Now I'm aware of the bishop. I thought it was he's an American preacher, so it'll have different connotations, and it'll be after the election. And I only had that one time, but I have seen his extensive work on Crowdsource the Truth with Jason Goodman. So he has a huge waft of information. I'm very well aware of who the bishop is. But yeah, sorry, Kelly. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
That's fine. No, that's good. I'm delighted that he's coming on. That's the guy who's coming on to speak to you. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you've seen any of his. Have you seen any of his work on Crowdsource the Truth?
Nope.
Yeah, he is a, how shall we say, in our circles, in my circles, he is a red pill monster. He knows everything that we would all pertain to know and some, and has opened up my mind to a lot of things anyway that I didn't even consider. So Kelly, just a few closing thoughts on the argument set there by the doctors and practitioners. It is in line, or it is in keeping with something similar that you're saying. And please remind us all again, I know we've got it, but for those late attendees, your suggestion for questioning not only the practitioners, but pushing in an impact statement as well. To who and what should they address? Just a
personal impact statement on how this has affected you or your child or your family or your parent, but how it's affected you, and send it to the TDs. And I would not just send it to one TD, I'd send it to all the TDs. But I mean, even just send it to the ones for your county, that'd be great. That'd be a start. And just say to them, look, this is what it's affected and how it's affected me. And I don't agree with it, and my reasons for, and ask questions. Say, what are suicide rates, for instance, because they're absolutely on the rise. And the first lockdown, the government stopped collecting figures for that because it wasn't deemed essential. So are they now still not collecting figures? Because the word on the street, and again, it's just the word on the street. I don't have anything to back this up. So, but the word on the street is, and I've heard it from a couple of people, is that in Dublin, the suicides could be as high as 30. And certainly there was one of the ambulance services in England came out and the other day and said that the suicide rates in London were 37 a day.
Oh, dear
So,
God. That's terrible.
yeah, either suicides or suicide attempts. And so, you know, they are on the rise, and that is why I would say to people, it's really, really important to actually make sure you have something positive to do,
Yeah.
something you're going to get up and do. If you like running, run. If you like yoga, yoga. But if you can make it something that you're actually going to pass somebody in the street and say hello, that's really
Yeah.
good too. You need that human connection. And I would say to you, smile to everybody, smile at everybody, say hello. It doesn't matter if you don't normally, just smile and say hello. How are you? Isn't it a great day? You know, it's wonderful to be out, whatever. It's just really important. And, you know, if you're in
Beneficial.
it is beneficial. And, you know, if you are a person who doesn't wear a mask as well, smile at all the mask wearers, not in a
I
bad or
am.
mad, but I would go around smiling at everybody anyway, and saying hello, and just be loving towards them all, because you don't know, you have no we have no idea what's going on in another person's life ever. So we have no idea whether they're having a really hard time, or if they aren't wearing a mask, why they aren't wearing a mask, or if they are wearing a mask, why they are wearing a mask. We absolutely never have any idea what's going on in somebody else's life. And I think that's really being brought home at the moment with
Yeah.
all the mental issues that's going on. So if you can smile at everybody and just be nice and say hello, if they don't smile back, that's fine. Let them off. It's okay. Let them go. But
It's for your body, your mind, your positivity. You're setting the
absolutely. And
frame out. As someone that's
yes,
experienced isolation on a prolonged period, shall we say, at somebody else's leisure, shall we say, when you're in a confined space, the focus and drive, and not only routine is very important as well, but to set it out, but for your mind, your first frame of the day, I think one of the tricks is to have a book of inspirational quotes, just to pick it up first thing in the morning, pick that for inspiration book, read that first quote, change the page every day and get up and get on with your day. Draw another line out then. This is directed primarily at men for this second one then as well, is make your bed. Another Jordan Peterson bit of insight, but it's critical. The simple fact of making your bed, just as soon as you jump out of it, clean it, fresh it, and then carry on with your ablutions for the rest of it. But you've achieved that one milestone for the day. You've set a target. You know, every
yeah,
day for me is a target. There's things that I need to get done every day. And once I check them off the box, getting up first thing, doing whatever I do, that's that checked off the books. That's a sense of accomplishment. On to the next thing. But also the positive inspiration. I got that from another guy, another, how would you say, another canary. Another canary said that. And I found that very beneficial as well, because your first thought, rather than wake up to apprehension, anxiety, you know, previous night's thoughts jumping straight into your mind pattern or your train of thoughts, hit it straight off the mark, something inspirational, get it going. And then everything else is gravy. I'm not saying everything is gravy. Life isn't gravy. But if you set the premise off, you make that first step constructive and engaged, you know, I think it's really, for me anyway, it's very beneficial. I can only speak from personal experience.
no, I would agree. And I would say that some people can't bring themselves to read something. So there's loads on YouTube and things, loads of inspirational people. So you can have them bookmarked and you can just turn them on and and listen to
Oh,
them
dear.
as well. So, that's another way to do it.
I'm just reading through the live chat there. I don't know if you can see any of the comments there from our good friend Jenny. Jenny, I'm not going to read it out. I'll put it up on display, but all I can say is prayers, and you're always in our thoughts, as you are one of our family members there. It's that's, I don't know if you can see the comments there.
I missed.
Kelly,
They
it's
weren't
about 4 or
scroll.
5 back up. Jenny, probably going a little bit too fast, but and we won't talk about it anymore anyway. Jenny, maybe we'll come in and speak it when we bring you on for another interaction. But I just wanted to, I could have typed it in, but I wanted to say something. Sorry, Kelly, for breaking up the.
Okay.
That's the distraction of live chat. You interact with everybody. All our friends are in there. They're having their conversations and they're listening in and paying attention to us. And then it's exactly that kind of thing. It's those human interactions. Somebody else, a place where friendly, familiar, not even familiar people, but friendly minds. That's all we are here. We're just connecting minds, essentially. But, you know, we're here for each other. And I just wanted to give out a shout to Jenny there. I don't know if she was in my thoughts anyway. Kelly, how's that coming? We're coming up on 40 minutes there now. And again, I really want to thank you. I know I'm hogging the mic. Really appreciate all the information that you're coming up towards. We really love your pleasant tone and your engaging tone. And again, it's the information and the suggestions. You know, we always have come up here and going, oh, look at this. Oh, look, they're doing this now. Oh, look, I told you. Now they're doing this. At least we're coming on with some suggestions, something practically. If you haven't anything that you've considered before, maybe some of your suggestions might inspire people to get up on that things, yeah?
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you very much. And I didn't leap in over you today. You did notice that.
You were a rare thing of beauty, Jenny. Jenny, just for that. Jenny, Kelly, just for that.
Ooh la la. I don't know if you can hear this. Ooh la la. C'est magnifique. Je t'aime, je t'aime. Or you can
have this one. Hey everybody! Kelly's gonna go home now. I won't sleep till 5 in the morning.
Only buzzing. They gave me a soundboard, Kelly. What can I do? They gave me a soundboard. Who's they? I am they. This is a one-horse operation. Kelly, I'll let you go. Kelly, before I let you go, please, one more time. Where can people find your books, your Twitter handle again, please, and your Instagram?
Okay. My book is on Amazon and it's called What If I Harmed My Children? And it's under Kelly C.S. Johnson. And my webpage is kellycsjohnson.com. My Instagram is Kelly C.S. Johnson. And Twitter is the same, Kelly C.S. Johnson, but it has a 1 for some reason at the end of it.
Two-step authentication. You're very cunning, Kelly. Kelly, I'm going to let you go. We'll see you 2 weeks' time. We'll be booked in again.
Okay, yes, it'll be lovely. Okay, thank you.
That's presuming we're all still on the planet, but we'll make those preparations anyway.
Positive. Okay.
God bless. Take care.
Okay, thank you. Take care, and my love to all your viewers. Okay.
Okay, there, Rugrats. Okay, there, everybody's. As you can see, the ticker tape is working. Those of you over on Twitch and D Live, thank you very much for your interaction. I'm sorry we get them a little bit closer. Okay, gang, check this out. So, you know, the night that's in it for what it is, I'm going to be streaming. I'll probably stream on Facebook, just the one channel, and we're going to have a sit around. If you're staying up late at night, we'll be kicking around. I'll have some bits and pieces of music. We'll bring in some interactions from our friends over in the United States. I don't know what time or where. I will be joining some friends from Soapbox over in the United States, and we'll be getting the latest poll results as it travels around. I can't wait to see the look on Chunk Uger's face. He's already been on Twitter saying, you Republicans don't know what's coming. This blue wave has finally arrived. You're in for... I said, Shank, have you seen the cars behind Joe Biden's trailer down in Arizona? 96 miles of trucks, Trump trucks, following him up and down the countryside. It is still going to be a very tightly contested election. Do not pay attention to the popular vote. The popular vote, as our good friends have said before, means absolutely nothing. It's the electoral colleges where it's at, and already projections are, I can't do it. I have to be careful, particularly on live. I have to be really careful about that. It's like your man out of Doctor Strangelove. I can walk. I won't do that. So, folks, look out for another notification from me. If you're kicking around, if you're off a loose end, if your mind is spinning around, please come over and join us and say hello. I don't know where. Let us know the channels you're on, GT. Well, I'll be here again. I'll pause it out on Facebook. It'll be similar to this, and it'll go on for as long as it goes on. No time limited. Maybe look in and around midnight. I don't know, 12 midnight. I'll check in with you. I don't know what time I'll be joining my friends over there. And if I am, sure, I'll bring you over with me. See how it's going. Okay, my friends, I don't want to take up too much of Kelly's time. She's sitting there in the background waiting to scold me something, Robin. Quick shout from our good friend and sponsor of the show. Remember, keep a smile on your face, keep your chin up, keep your chest puffed out, and let's keep marching forward. We got this. Just you and me. See you later on, hopefully. If not, if you're not paying, I'll see you in the morning. I'll be here for a happy birthday, Gran Torino 50th celebration, first thing in the morning. Is it 50? 50. Us.